Georgia, Alabama. Here we go. We've got Georgia -2.5, night game in Tuscaloosa. This is why you get excited for the college football season. This is what you pinpoint your calendar to. This is what you get excited about. It's Georgia, Alabama. We finally get this regular season game. We don't have to wait till the SEC title game. We don't have to wait till the national title game. We're finally getting this in Tuscaloosa. I am so excited about this game. Jalen Milroe versus Carson Beck. Dylan, I'll start with you. This game feels like a coin flip. It could go any way. Bama's had recent success against Georgia, the last team to beat Georgia. Who are you going with in this game?
Lots of storylines. It is quite literally just about as close to a coin flip as you can get it. The last I saw, Alabama was plus 110, 2.5-point underdogs. Both teams coming off of a bye. We do a dangerous thing as sports fans. And we go about our lives thinking the teams at the top are invincible. They can't be touched. We saw it, honestly, Georgia every preseason. This team is the best team college. There's no chance. We saw 2 weeks ago, both teams coming off of bye. We saw Georgia 2 weeks ago not be able to stop the run against Kentucky. We saw the defense was fine. Kentucky only scored, 9 points. I love Alabama here. I think after this game, we will have serious talks about Jalen Milroe Heisman. I think the way that Alabama plays football, we talk about causing chaos and widening the range of possibilities. This is legitimately, you look at big-time throw rate conversely to turnover-worthy plays, and you have Georgia, who has 1% big-time throw rate, 1% turnover-worthy play rate. And then you look at Alabama, who has almost a 5% big-time throw rate, but that turnover-worthy play rate is a little bit higher at just over 1%. You want to compare schedules. Alabama's played Western Kentucky, USF, Wisconsin. You can say whatever you want about this Wisconsin team, but they did have to go to Camp Randall, even though it was during the day, and they handled their business. USF was closed for the first half. They start to pull away at the end. And then you have Georgia, who played a tough game at Clemson, handled their business against a great Clemson defense, which we have been proven since then that this Clemson defense is legit. Tennessee Tech, and then they struggled with Kentucky, which they struggle with Kentucky just, it seems, every year. The difference here, I think Alabama has the... Okay, all right. For the clip. I think Alabama has the better quarterback. I think Alabama has the more exciting quarterback. Alabama has the quarterback that can open this game up for their team. And I also think Alabama has more guys on defense. The left side of this Alabama defensive line could cause some serious troubles for the Georgia offensive line. You look at the linebackers, Campbell, Lawson, 2 studs. You have Sabb, a great safety. This is a defining game for the Kalen DeBoer era in Alabama. And I think I think they pull this one off. I think Alabama wins, and there's real possibility they win by 2 scores.
I wouldn't say Jalen Milroe is a better quarterback than Carson Beck, but I would say he's more exciting.
And that's fair. I think better, to an extent, is subjective because it's what you're looking for. Jalen Milroe is more likely to turn over the ball. Jalen Milroe is also more likely to rip off a 70-yard touchdown pass down the field.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Jalen Milroe has a better chance of winning the Heisman than Carson Beck because of that reason. Because whether we want to admit it or not, the exciting quarterbacks are the ones that are more likely to win Heisman. And as we've kind of talked about, like Heisman and number 1 overall pick are sometimes different guys.
Mm-hmm. Ben, well, who do you have, Ben? Who's winning this game?
I know you said that you think it could be a 2-score game. I'm kind of split just because there's a lot of things that I like from both teams in this scenario. Like for Kirby Smart, he's got like a bye week this past week, so he has 2 weeks to prepare for this game. That's something to take into consideration. I also found that Georgia on 3rd down is converting only 39% of the time, whereas opponents are converting 39% of the time against them. On the flip side, Alabama's converting 52.5% of the time on 3rd down, while opponents are converting 16.3%. That's a stat that was kind of eye-opening to me in a scenario like this, because both of these teams, I expect to have defenses that are good enough to put these offense in third down situations. Getting those stops and converting could be the difference in this game. And so because of that, I don't know. I think I'm leaning Alabama by like a field goal. That doesn't necessarily mean that I love Alabama more than Georgia long term, but in this matchup, you got them at home. You have a massive advantage at third down conversion on both offense and defense. I think that's enough for me to like them by like a field goal, like 27-24. But I would also not be shocked to see Georgia eliminate all concerns that they had versus Kentucky. That's kind of something Georgia does. I think it's going to be interesting to see, was this Georgia-Kentucky game, was it an aberration, kind of like that Mizzou game was a couple of years ago, or is this something to actually be concerned about with them? Especially considering the fact that Georgia win over Clemson, I think we went, oh, well, that just means Clemson's not very good. I'm not sure if that's the case. The case. That
Clemson
might just
will
mean
go
that
11
Georgia's...
and 1. They'll be in the ACC championship game.
They will be. But it could mean that Georgia's really good and just had that aberration of a week. We'll see. But I think Alabama, I like this Alabama team. They're a clear top 10 team. They're a really good team. It being in Tuscaloosa, third down differential, I like a little more than the 2 weeks to prepare for Kirby Smart, but it's 51-49 percentage-wise in my head.
Real quick, Carter, before you go, am I correct in saying that Alabama had a bye last week too, right? They didn't play.
Yeah, but Kirby's known. I think Kirby's 16-2 following a bye.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So I think
one more thing I wanted
to
point out, Carter, before you go, and I also have a follow-up question after you go. Bama also runs the ball more than Georgia does. We're looking at about 57% of the plays that Alabama runs is a rush play, and that is exactly what gave Georgia issues against Kentucky, is their ability to defend the run. That's just another point that goes for Alabama. And with that being said, I want to turn it to you, Carter, and then I have a question for the group.
Ask me a question first.
Who's had the tougher schedule?
Absolutely. I was going to bring that up.
And me personally, you go PFF here, I have it up in the background. It says that Alabama has the 13th ranked strength of schedule played. It says Georgia has the 39th, but almost undoubtedly, Georgia, I think the game against Tennessee Tech brings that number down for Georgia, because Clemson, we can say what we want about Kentucky, but, SEC team, and then Clemson obviously was a huge game, and Bama just hasn't played an FCS team, so I think that's why they're up there. I would lean Alabama, but Georgia has by far had the tougher game.
Mm-hmm. I think Georgia, the biggest problem with the Georgia Bulldogs is they play to their competition. They play to their competition more than any other dynasty, I think, has. Because even those Nick Saban Alabama teams would blow out a Kentucky. These dynasties would blow out. They wouldn't get in these tight games against a Georgia Tech last season. Georgia Tech was an 8-point game last season. But Georgia was still one of the best teams in the country, probably the 5th best team in the country last season. Georgia is definitely not invincible. But I think there is a bad taste in their mouths from that SEC title game. I don't think Kirby Smart and this team and Carson Beck forget about what happened last year in Atlanta, Georgia. I think they're going to come out and win this game outright against Carson Beck. And that's not my only reason, Dylan, so relax over there. That's not my only reason. We overreact to these Georgia stinkers. I do. I was guilty of it last season. They've done this for 3 years now, where all of a sudden it's halftime. You're like, is Georgia up 3 against UT Martin right now? What is happening? They do this against these teams that they overlook these teams. But typically when it comes to these big-time games, when they play the Tennessees, the Ole Misses, they come out and dominate typically. Now you can say, well, they lost to Alabama last year, so you can't say that. I understand that. This isn't Georgia's going to win by 10 prediction. This is Georgia wins by a field goal at the very end. This is going to be a tight game. I'm very excited about it. I don't know if I can believe in this Alabama offensive line. That was the difference in the Michigan-Alabama game last year because Jalen Milroe was running for his life against that Michigan defense. And I'm not saying this Georgia defense is as elite as that Michigan one was last year, but I think that's going to give Milroe a lot of trouble in this game. A lot of trouble. And I don't know if I trust these Alabama wide receivers quite yet against this Georgia secondary. Go ahead, Dylan.
You say that about Alabama's offensive line, though, and you bring up a point from last year. They got rid of the weakest part. They got rid of McLaughlin. Like, that was the weakest part of this offensive line.
I understand that, and they were getting destroyed from every part of that offensive line last season. And also, he's been getting sacked. He has been getting pressured this season, Jalen Milroe. So, yes, he can evade it. Well, go ahead.
I hear that point, right? I hear what you're saying, and I want to point this out because I had mentioned that the Alabama's defensive line, the left side, could cause some problems for Georgia.
Sure.
Jalen Milroe, even if he is pressured, his passer rating when under pressure is 130.4.
I think that's easy to say against USF and Wisconsin, though.
And at that point, though, Carter, why are we doing the show?
Okay,
we can't talk about what's happened this year.
No, but I think it's also more important to bring that. Okay, what was his stats with that last season? That's a bigger point.
But I hear what you're saying.
Pressure, it's that you get that PFF rating. I think you'd get a better baseline playing against SEC opponents because it's tough. We're still in this early stages of the college football season where we're finally this is kind of the defining week for teams where, okay, after this week, we kind of know who we got. We kind of know who we have as true national title contenders. We kind of know who we have as playoff contenders. We know who's going to be toilet bowls and who's going to fire their coaches after the season. That's kind of where you know where you are after week 5. And I really think Kirby Smart and this Georgia team, they're going to come in this game. They're not going to play down to their competition. I think everyone's going to get scared after that Kentucky game, and I don't blame people. But I think they come in and I think they take care of business in Alabama.
I don't know. Let me just put a bow on my thoughts for a short, condensed, for a clip or whatever. Alabama's left side of the defensive line could cause some issues for Carson Beck. We see his passer rating when under pressure is 58. Milroe's is 130.4. This Alabama defense has more guys than Georgia. The linebackers, Campbell, Lawson, Sabb as a safety is amazing. And Jalen Milroe's upside widens the possibilities for this game. If he throws 3 interceptions, Georgia blows him out. But Milroe has the opportunity to go over top of this defense, 60, 70-yard passes. I'm going to lean towards the ceiling of that outcome, and I'm going to say Alabama wins this and convincingly 2 scores.
Convincingly 2 scores.
I
feel like the Alabama's the more high-risk, high-reward pick here because Jalen Milroe has the ability to turn over the ball more than Beck does, I believe. But also, I think you're undervaluing Carson Beck here because I think Carson Beck can throw over the top of this Alabama team, and I think Carson Beck can be a great quarterback, and I also trust Carson Beck to control the game.
I don't want this to be, because I know how this goes with once we put clips, I don't want it to be that Carson Beck is a bad quarterback or I'm doubting him. I don't think he gets the opportunity to showcase the talent that he has. I think that Alabama's defensive line is going to be in his face, breathing down his neck the whole game. There will not be time for the play to develop and Carson Beck to show us what he has. And even if there is time, like I said, Alabama's linebackers, Sabb at safety, like these guys are locked down. They're great defenders. I don't think Alabama gives Carson Beck the ability to show off what he can do because their defense is going to be so suffocating.
I hope we get to see both these quarterbacks showcase, though. I hope they, like, as a neutral, as someone who doesn't really care about the outcome necessarily, I'm picking Georgia. We'll see if I bet Georgia. I don't know if I'll bet them. It's either Georgia or nothing. I'm not going to take Alabama. Once I make my pick on the show, I'm not going to sit there and go back and reverse it. I'm not. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Go back and reverse
no.
it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I can't wait for this YouTube preview to come out, and Dylan comes up on the intro, goes, so, by the way, I'm actually going Georgia now because I flip-flopped once again. I mean, Dylan, we know this. You can't flip-flop now. We both got burned by it horribly.
I was half right.
No,
my analysis
Oklahoma.
was right.
You picked Oklahoma.
I picked
That's
Oklahoma,
wrong.
but my reasoning was
Wrong.
right. They're eating the dogs. Alabama's eating the dogs.
I'm so excited for this game. I think it's going to be just classic. We're getting Herb Street Fowler on the call, I believe. It's going to be it's one of those games you don't forget. I hope it's a close game. I hope we get it come down to the wire. I hope we have a quarterback with 2 minutes left to drive down the field and see what they're about, because that's the Heisman moment. If you're a Jalen Milroe Heisman believer, if you're a Carson Beck Heisman believer, that's going to be the moment that can flip the switch in people's brains that say, that guy is the best player in this country. That guy is the best quarterback in this country. And I hope we get that in this game. I like Georgia, though. I think Georgia gets it done against Alabama. Also, I think we glossed over the fact that for 3/4 of USF Alabama was on the ropes.
Yeah. That's every year, though. It's the same. You say the same thing with Georgia and Kentucky.
For sure. It was 4 quarters. It was 4 quarters.
Yeah.
If Mark Stoops wasn't a wuss, they would have ended up they could have won that game if he would have just people have overblown it, so we don't need to get into Mark Stoops being a wuss.
So the score predictions?
Yeah. Score predictions, Georgia, Alabama. I'll start with you, Dylan.
I'm going Alabama 27-17.
27-17?
Yep.
Double-digit win for Alabama over Georgia.
Double digits.
Ben.
Alabama 27-24, game-winning field goal as time expires.
Wow. I'm going Georgia. 28, Alabama 27. I'm going Georgia 28,
okay.
Alabama 27. I think Carson Beck gets it done. Which also, Dylan, we talked about the spread lines and everything, and Ben, that would honestly be the most Vegas outcome of all time, is Georgia winning by less than 3 points.
1 point win.
Everybody who's going to be betting this, every Joe Schmo who's going to be betting this game is going to be like, no, Alabama money line. And then you're going to get everyone that's Georgia minus 2.5. They're like, I don't want to take the juice on Georgia. I don't want to take minus 130 on Georgia. Let's just go Georgia minus 2.5. And everybody loses.
You might be onto something there. You might be onto something there. We might revisit this come Sunday and be like, wow, Karter hit the nail on the head.
Oh my gosh. Have you seen the NFL lately? They are wiping people. They are wiping people right now.
I don't know who.
Not me. I had a great week.
Not me. Oh,
Yo,
it's been
Panthers,
great.
keep pounding. Yeah.
Parlay.
Shout out the dogs. It's been a dog week in the NFL.